Welcome to Holistic Human Performance Podcast. My name is Gena, where we talk all things holistic health, wellness, spirituality, fitness, meditation, energetics, and so much more to help you become the healthiest version of yourself. Let's dive in. This is not medical advice. This is simply to help you on your journey through health, fitness, and wellness. I hope this helps. You can complement this with anything that you are doing currently in your life. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Holistic Human Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Gena Bradshaw, and today we have a very special guest, Dr. Lori Earley, and she is the owner and founder of Phoenix Rising Integrative Medicine. I am so excited to have her on, and we could take a deep dive into Chinese medicine and functional medicine and how you can utilize this in your life to improve your health and overall well-being. So without further ado, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Okay. So let's start. Number one, what is it that you do? Let the people know, and then we'll go into your journey of how you even got into Chinese medicine.
Yeah, so I currently have a clinic in Houston, Texas, and it's been here for about 10 years. I opened it 10 years ago. And I do an integrative approach. So my doctorate is in Chinese medicine, but over the past 3 or 4 years, I've been incorporating functional medicine. And so it's more of a Chinese medicine plus functional medicine approach to really uncovering root cause and then putting patients on a simplified strategy moving forward to overcome their health issues.
Love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's so important, especially in today, just other people knowing that they have other options.
Yeah.
So how is it that you even got into this?
So that's an interesting story. I think every alternative health or holistic health practitioner has their own kind of enlightening moment. And mine it kind of happened in steps. So for me, I have a master's in microbiology, and my goal was either to go into medical school or to work in academia doing research. However, I breezed through college and my master's, and I was like, okay, I need to take a break. I want to get out in the working force. And I knew some people who were in the pharmaceutical industry. And so I started interviewing in the pharmaceutical industry, thinking that this would be like a 2 or 3 year hiatus just to save money and then go back into getting my PhD or my doctorate. And what led to, the search for a job in pharmaceutical sales ended up me working in the industry for about a decade. And I worked for 3 major pharmaceutical companies between the years of 2000 and 2010. And over that time, I saw the corruption. So the benefit that I had in going into pharmaceuticals was I didn't have that communications or marketing major. I was not a business major. I was a science major. So I understood the statistics and the science, and I was very well versed on how to read and interpret medical journals, et cetera. And what I was realizing was that the pharmaceutical companies were lying to us, the pharmaceutical reps, on the efficacy of the meds, the safety profile. There was a lot of aha moments, even in my first year of working, where I found out that it isn't even the doctors who are asking for a medication out of need. It's the pharmaceutical companies that are developing medications, oftentimes with the hope that it will do one thing, but it ends up not doing that thing. It ends up doing something else. And as a result, they're having to go back and say, well, how can we market this? Because we already have this medication at the end of the trial and it's not working for what we intended to. So how can we create a market for this? So they're creating the market, and then we go out and we sell the patient type and the market to the practitioners. So a specific indication for this was when I was working for Eli Lilly. They were trying to find a medication that would take over Prozac because Prozac was about to end their patent. And instead, they found a medication that they intended to be more of an antidepressant, but it was more of something that helped with focus. And they were like, okay, well, if this is working on focus and it's not working on depression, then we can provide it for people who have ADD and ADHD. So it became the first non-stimulant ADHD med. It wasn't really, it wasn't accepted very well as they intended. And so they had to broaden the market to continue to sell in the market share. And so they developed adult ADHD. So back in 2001, there was no such thing as adult ADHD. But when they developed this medication, they had to go into DSM-4 and write what adult ADHD really was. So we had to go in and talk to doctors and say, there is a patient type who is an adult. They still have ADHD, they still have ADD, but it's not being perceived in the same way as we typically perceive it in children. And then we were able to open up the marketplace and start to sell. So it was interesting to me and a little bit frustrating and saddening to see that it was the pharmaceutical industry that was just pushing the medication just to sell medications. And then over time, as I moved to other pharmaceutical companies, it was becoming more and more concerning because they were hiding serious side effects like the link to cancer associated with some of their medications. So after about 10 years, I was just like, I cannot do this. This is so unethical, and I don't want my parents or grandmother or grandparents on these medications. So why would I sell, you know? So I was like, I ended up quitting without really planning what I was going to do next. And the day that I quit, I was a single mom. My oldest daughter was about 18 months at the time. And I was like, what am I going to do? This is what I've been doing for the past 10 years. And I remembered a conversation that I had about 2 years prior with this man that I had met at an astrology event who was the president of an acupuncture and Chinese medicine school. And he was telling me about acupuncture and about herbs. And at the time, I remember like rolling my eyes because I'm so like analytical and left brain and thinking, how in the world are needles going to impact health? That made absolute no sense to me. But for whatever reason, the day that I left my job, I was like, maybe I will see what's out there. And there is a school here in Houston. So I drove to school, had my daughter with me. And that day they were actually accepting people for the fall semester. And they
wow.
were
I have
so
full body chills.
yeah. So they were like, is that why you're here? And I was like, sure, let's do this. I had no idea what all it entailed. I had never had acupuncture before. I had no understanding or concept, but once I started the program, it's about a 4 to 5.5 year program. It just clicked. Everything so made sense. And at that time, I was in my early 30s. I was on about 10 medications for allergies, for depression, for, you know, all sorts of things. And it was just like, what is going on? Like I started incorporating the Chinese medicine, and then all of a sudden, one by one, month after month, year after year, I was no longer requiring the medications anymore.
That's awesome.
I left the program. I finished in 3 years, and I was only on one medication at that time. And then I opened Phoenix Rising in 2013 when I graduated. So I've been doing that. And then in 2019, I started looking into more functional medicine because I was having autoimmune flares. And that's whenever I started understanding things like breast implant illness and kind of raising awareness around that. And then I ended up having my own explant surgery and using functional medicine testing to determine like what my triggers were for autoimmune. So that's how my whole story goes, and then that's how I work with my patients as well. So I really use functional labs to uncover what the triggers are, and then I traditionally use more Chinese medicine tools to help heal.
Wow, that's incredible. I love what a story. And also, a lot of people get like you had a long journey,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people get very frustrated
Mm-hmm.
on this journey, and they're like, I'm just going to go see the doctor and, take this medication. And how do you kind of navigate through those conversations with your patients when they feel frustrated, or, because you have a sense of persistency, and you were very curious. Some people may not be like that. So
Mm-hmm.
what's your, how do you navigate those conversations with people?
Oftentimes I don't have to, because most of my patients find me because they have exhausted all of their options. They don't come to Chinese medicine as a first line therapy, like they're feeling chronic depression or they're having, hormones issues. They don't think of Chinese medicine as a first place to go where it should be. So they've gone through the doctor, they've been failed by the traditional medicine system, they've gone to functional medicine, they've been given all the supplements, they've tried all the diets, and they're still struggling. And it's not until they come in and they're like, I have done everything, and now I feel like they're putting it all on me. So Chinese medicine has tools in which we can help in ways that Western medicine and functional medicine just can't. And that's when they really, if they're able to commit to, coming in to receive treatment, then you can see drastic changes in their health pretty quickly. And they're like, why didn't I do this 3, 5, 8, 10, 20 years ago? Like, well, Chinese medicine is not at the forefront of people's minds.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Now I love it on your Instagram when you were talking about the history of Chinese medicine. Can you kind of discuss that so that, people understand like where this actually came from? Because it's really fascinating, and I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Chinese medicine is known as the emperor's medicine. And it was the emperor who had a Chinese medicine physician at his side. And oftentimes the Chinese medicine practitioner or physician would be executed if he didn't do his job correctly. And what his job entailed was not to take care of the emperor when he was sick, but to not allow the emperor to get sick in the first place. So that is where Chinese medicine truly shines, is where it's all preventative so that you don't get sick. You don't fall into what we call out of disharmony. And whenever there's disharmony, then disease sets in. So we're constantly adjusting. We're able to adjust through acupuncture, Chinese herbs, etc., in order to keep the body healthy and in alignment with health so that disease doesn't set in.
Amazing. Yeah. And I think it's very crucial for everyone to understand that this is a preventative measure. I know that a lot of people will go to see you or other acupuncturists, and they'll, it's like, I've given up. I've exhausted all of my other options. I have no clue where to go now. When in fact, you should have been doing this 3, 5, 8 years prior. I know for myself personally, I love acupuncture. I go every single weekend. Even if I'm feeling great, I'm like, no, I really need to go, because I know my body's like, after a couple of weeks, it's like, you've been slowing your roll on acupuncture, and I can physically tell the difference.
Yeah, it breaks my heart when people are like, okay, well, I'm feeling better, so I'll just give you a call, like if anything else pops up. And I'm like, I always talk about what the importance is of prevention and maintenance. And so anyone who has come to me and we have overcome their health concerns, then I put them on a maintenance plan so that things don't arise again. But people, it's just a completely different perspective and paradigm from Western and Eastern, completely. Like we are we only fix what's broken or want to fix what's broken, and we want it done quickly versus really nourishing and putting in the time and effort and awareness of working on things ahead of time before they get things out of whack. And another difference is the only other medicine that I'm aware of who really understands this aspect of healing is Ayurvedic, where we understand the importance of nourishing. So some of my most unhealthy clients and practitioners are actually functional medicine or naturopaths who detox all the time. And it's like, you can detox, but where's the nourishment? And I see this a lot when my perimenopause and menopause patients, because they have just been detoxing. And as we get older, we lose those nourishing fluids is what we call them, like the yin substance, which keeps us healthy and youthful and vibrant and sleeping well and our moods consistent and, not having the dry eyes and the thirst, et cetera, that comes along with older age. And it's like, if you're constantly like sweating and draining and doing cleanses, then there's no nourishment. So you're going to hit that wall a lot harder and you're going to age more quickly. But in Chinese medicine, we understand that there has to be a balance of, if there's any output, there has to be input to come in and help nourish you.
Love that. That was so informative. Thank you for that. So I do want to talk a little bit about breast implants because this is, I got friends personally for me, just due to, I'm a 2-time cancer survivor. I'm not opting in for any surgeries. So, can you kind of just go into, honestly, there's a lot of health risks that come along with doing breast implants. And I completely understand, if someone's unhappy with their body, obviously you can resonate with this. But I always look at risk versus reward. And honestly, the risk is just too high. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and kind of like the symptoms maybe that you were experiencing? And because honestly, I find, at least, and I know that you obviously feel the same way, there's people don't realize that cause and effect. They don't realize like one thing is going to ripple effect into another. So let's touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. So luckily there has been a lot of awareness in the past 4 or 5 years around breast implants and the damage and harm that it's causing people. And I have to say this with a caveat, because oftentimes I actually had to leave a lot of the breast implant illness groups because they were blaming their implants on everything. And I'm like, okay, they're only solely thinking that it's their implants, and once they get it taken out, that everything else is going to be fine. And that's just not the case. So the way I explain it to people who reach out to me about breast implants, or they're my patients and they're wanting to go through the healing journey with me as they explant, is we are all in modern society being bombarded by constant toxins, pathogens. And it's like, breast implants are a huge contributor to that. With it, especially the more common ones like the gummy bear silicone ones, those are extra challenging on the body. And so they can cause all sorts of, in some rare cases, cancer, but also heavy metal toxicity, mold toxicity, just siliconosis. There's evidence that it was back in the 90s when it was actually found that breast implants were causing illness. It was originally called Schoenfeld syndrome. Now it's called ASIA. It's autoimmune syndrome induced by adjuvants. Also in alignment with that is vaccines fall into that. So there is evidence that falls under Schoenfeld's or ASIA, where there's something in the body that is triggering an autoimmune response. So we know that it's causing that. However, we also have to be open to the fact that our food is causing it, our water, the makeup and the cosmetics that we're putting on our skin, all the things that we're coming in contact with on a daily basis are also creating and wreaking havoc on our systems. So when it comes to implants, I always ask like the type of implants. There's certain ones that if they are textured, if they are silicone, that's going to increase your risk of issues because of the siliconosis. And also for those patients that are planning on doing an explant, they're wondering like, do you want to do just the explant or do you want to do a capsulectomy with it? Meaning, do you take the capsule, the surrounding tissue that the implant has been contacting, do you want to take that too? And that's a much more invasive surgery. So I chose to do the capsulectomy because I had my implants in for 20 years. And I was like, yeah, I'm just going to take it all out, but I didn't have silicone and I didn't have textured. My implants came out clean, but I did have scar tissue like all the way up to my collarbones and on my ribs and around my ribs. So that was all taken out. But for a lot of patients that have those textured silicone, it leaves with it like a gel-like sticky substance. So it is so important to take the capsule out, that surrounding tissue, because if you don't, you're stuck with the silicone that's still embedded in the tissue, causing damage. So yeah, it's causing damage, but is it causing 80 to 90% of your symptoms, or is it causing 10% of your symptoms? Where is it in the toxic bucket? And sometimes patients are like, okay, well, let's check all these other things out and see what else could be contributing to my health concerns. And sometimes it's like, it could be black mold and boom, there it is, you know, like, let's get rid of the black mold and all of a sudden they're fine and their breast implants really weren't causing too much damage. However, breast implants are always causing some sort of damage. It's just how much are you willing to, you know, deal with.
Yeah. That was okay. Got it. That's very informative. Thank you. So as we wrap up, are there any words of wisdom you would like to leave the listeners?
Yeah, so I think a common theme that I'm seeing is with the rise of functional medicine, what I'm seeing is that a lot of patients are stepping away from Western medicine because they have been failed by the system. They're just getting Band-Aid approach with medications, et cetera. And so they're moving to functional medicine. And oftentimes what I'm seeing is it's pretty much the same thing. They're still being given a Band-Aid approach, and they're given, instead of those 7 or 8 medications, now they're on 10, 20, 25 supplements, and they just can't keep up and they don't really feel much improvement. So that's where I feel like therapies and medicines like Chinese medicine comes in, because in order to truly heal and move forward in your healing path, the number one thing that needs to be done before we supplement or anything is to regulate your nervous system. Everyone has a dysregulated nervous system when they come in to see me. They're tired, they're overwhelmed, they're frustrated, their anxiety, their stress levels are high, etc. And your body can't heal in that state of sympathetic stress. So that's why I always incorporate, even when I'm working with clients online, I refer them to an in-person, you know, to receive in-person treatment to regulate their nervous system. And then everything else can so much more easily fall into place, and they don't have to supplement themselves to death because the supplements just aren't working when you're still frazzled.
Yeah. Again, it's like, how much are you intaking, but are you also releasing as well? You know, are you bottling everything up? It doesn't matter how much you're taking, because if your body is not getting rid of these toxins, then it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So where can people find you?
So the best way to find me is probably Instagram. It's Phoenix Rising Medicine. And I have a clinic in Houston, and I'm also doing virtual consulting. So yeah, Instagram's the way to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. It was such a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Guys, if you like this episode, like, share, subscribe, share it with someone you think would need this information in their lives. and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.